As Arya raised up the shirt, her eyes fell upon the red stain on Alexander's shirt. Her heart skipped a beat, a flicker of concern flashing across her features. She frowned slightly, her gaze shifting from the shirt to Alexander, who was emerging from the walk-in closet with a black towel wrapped around his waist. "Alexander, what's this?" Arya's voice was barely above a whisper as she held up the shirt, her fingers trembling slightly as she pointed to the stain. Alexander's brow furrowed in confusion as he glanced at the shirt, his expression clouded with bewilderment. "What's what?" he asked, his tone tinged with uncertainty. Arya's eyes narrowed as she scrutinized the stain, her mind racing with a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. She knew that stain wasn't there before, and the sight of it sent a wave of unease coursing through her veins. "This stain, Alexander," Arya said, her voice tinged with apprehension as she held the shirt out towards him. "It looks like lipstick." Alexander's eyes widened in surprise as he took the shirt from her, his gaze fixated on the red mark. "Lipstick? That's strange," he muttered, his tone laced with confusion. Arya's heart clenched at his response, a knot of dread forming in the pit of her stomach. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, that there was more to this stain than met the eye. "Did something happen today, Alexander?" Arya's voice was gentle, but there was a note of urgency in her tone as she searched his face for any hint of guilt or deception. Alexander's brow furrowed in thought as he racked his brain for an explanation. I bumped into someone at the restaurant," he admitted reluctantly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "It was nothing, just a brief encounter." Arya's eyes narrowed as she studied his expression, her intuition telling her that there was more to the story than he was letting on. But before she could press him further, Alexander reached out to gently cup her face in his hands, his eyes filled with sincerity. "Listen, Arya, whatever happened today, it means nothing," Alexander said, his voice earnest as he looked into her eyes. "You're the only one I love, the only one I want." Arya's heart swelled with emotion at his words, her doubts and fears melting away in the warmth of his embrace. She knew then, more than ever, that she could trust him with her heart, no matter what challenges they faced. With a sigh, Arya leaned into his touch, her lips curling into a soft smile. "I believe you, Alexander," she said, her voice filled with love and reassurance. "Let's forget about this and focus on our time together before you leave for California." The following day. After returning home late at night, Arya couldn't shake the feeling of dizziness and nausea that had plagued her since morning. She attributed it to exhaustion and decided that a good night's sleep would do her wonders. Climbing into bed, the house felt strangely empty without Alexander's presence. Despite their frequent texts and phone calls, Arya couldn't help but miss him terribly. Wrapping herself in the warmth of their shared blankets, she drifted off to sleep, hoping to wake up feeling refreshed. The next morning, Arya awoke feeling surprisingly better. The dizziness and nausea had vanished, leaving her feeling relieved. It seemed whatever had been bothering her was nothing more than a passing ailment. Stretching her limbs, Arya couldn't help but smile as she gazed around the room. The sun streamed through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the familiar surroundings. Despite Alexander's absence, she felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over her. Today was a new day, and she was determined to make the most of it. As Arya busied herself in the kitchen, pouring a glass of juice, the familiar sound of her phone ringing interrupted the quiet hum of the room. With a slight furrow of her brow, she glanced at the screen, her heart skipping a beat when she saw Alexander's name flashing on the display. Setting down the glass, she quickly wiped her hands on a kitchen towel before reaching for the phone. With a smile tugging at her lips, she answered the call. "Hey, love," Arya greeted, her voice soft with affection as she cradled the phone against her ear. "Hey, beautiful," Alexander's warm tone echoed through the line, filling her with a sense of warmth and longing. "I miss you." Arya's smile widened at his words, a rush of happiness washing over her. "I miss you too, Alexander," she replied, her voice filled with genuine affection. "How's everything over there?" "It's going well, but I have some news," Alexander said, his tone turning serious, prompting Arya's brow to furrow in concern. Arya's brow furrowed in concern. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. "There's been a slight delay with the business deal I mentioned yesterday," Alexander explained. "I need to stay an extra day to iron out some details." Arya's heart sank at the news, a wave of disappointment washing over her. "Oh, I see," she said, trying to mask her disappointment. "I understand, Alexander. Your work is important." "I'm sorry, Arya. I know I promised to be back today, but I'll make it up to you when I return," Alexander said, his voice filled with sincerity. Arya nodded, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. "It's okay, Alexander. I'll be here waiting for you," she said, forcing a smile. "I love you, Arya," Alexander said softly, his voice filled with emotion. "I love you too, Alexander," Arya replied, her voice catching in her throat. As they said their goodbyes, Arya couldn't shake the feeling of loneliness that washed over her once the call ended. She missed Alexander more than ever, but she knew she had to be strong for him. With a sigh, she wiped away her tears and resolved to make the most of the time they had apart. Later that day, as Jessica observed Arya bustling around the kitchen, her mind wandered to her brother's absence. She couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over her whenever she thought about Alexander's dedication to his work. "So, my brother isn't going to come home today?" Jessica ventured, her tone laced with curiosity. Arya paused in her cooking, casting a glance in Jessica's direction. "Yes, that's what he said. He's busy with some business deals. It appears to be important for the company," she explained. "I never knew my brother to be such a workaholic. It seems he's been like that for a long time, but no one has really noticed." "Oh, Alexander, so good at deceiving people," Jessica remarked, a hint of frustration coloring her tone. "I can't believe he didn't even tell me, his favorite sister, of his identity." Arya offered Jessica a sympathetic smile. "Well, he must have had his reasons," she replied diplomatically. "Yeah, he must have," Jessica agreed, though a flicker of doubt crossed her features. She turned her gaze to Arya, noticing her recent eating habits. "Isn't this like the third time you've eaten since I've been here?" Jessica inquired, trying to sound casual. "Not like I'm prying or anything," she added hastily. Arya let out a small groan, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. "I don't know why I've been eating so much lately, and the next morning I end up throwing everything up," she confessed, her tone filled with frustration. Jessica's eyes narrowed for a moment as she considered Arya's words, a nagging suspicion tugging at her mind. "What?" Arya prompted, noticing Jessica's intent gaze. Jessica shrugged nonchalantly, though her mind was racing with questions. "It's nothing." "I might be wrong," she said dismissively. Arya nodded, though a sense of uncertainty lingered in the air. "Oh, I miss Alex. He promised to come home tomorrow afternoon," she said wistfully, her thoughts drifting back to her husband. Jessica's eyes softened with sympathy as she looked at Arya, her heart going out to her sister-in-law. "I'm sure he'll make it up to you when he gets back," she said gently, offering a reassuring smile. "And if he doesn't, well, I'll be here to keep you company." Arya's lips curled into a grateful smile as she nodded, feeling a sense of comfort in Jessica's presence. "Thank you, Jessica," she said, her voice filled with appreciation. "It means a lot to have you here." Jessica returned the smile, her gaze filled with warmth. "Any time, Arya," she said, her tone sincere. "We're family after all." "I didn't bring Mason because he's in school," Jessica replied, a hint of sadness creeping into her voice as she avoided Arya's gaze. "And as for his father," she trailed off, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. "It's complicated," she added finally, offering Arya a tight smile. Arya nodded understandingly, sensing Jessica's reluctance to delve into the topic further. "I understand," she said softly, reaching out to place a comforting hand on Jessica's arm. "You know you can always talk to me if you need to, right?" she added, her voice gentle and reassuring. Jessica nodded gratefully, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Thanks, Arya," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I appreciate that." With a supportive smile, Arya pulled Jessica into a warm hug, silently reassuring her that she was not alone. "Mason's father is a married man," Jessica admitted. Arya pulled out from the hug and looked at Jessica with widened eyes. "What do you mean?" "Not like I had an affair with a married man or anything. I got pregnant with Mason when his father hadn't gotten married. We can't be together because he's far older than me, and I was so foolish to have fallen in love with someone like him." Jessica's voice wavered as she revealed the painful truth, her words tinged with regret and sorrow. "I haven't loved anyone since then. You know what? I shouldn't be boring you with the talk of my life." Arya listened quietly as Jessica revealed the truth about Mason's father, her heart aching for her friend. She could see the pain and regret etched into Jessica's features, and it pained her to know that she had been carrying this burden alone for so long. "Jessica, you're not boring me at all," Arya said gently, reaching out to take Jessica's hand in hers. "I'm here for you, always, and you're not alone in this." Jessica's eyes glistened with tears as she squeezed Arya's hand gratefully. "Thank you, Arya," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The following day. Immediately Alexander got to Seattle, he headed to LH Star. As Alexander made his way through the bustling corridors of LH Star, his mind was preoccupied with thoughts of the new perfume campaign. He was eager to see who the team had chosen as the perfect model to represent their latest fragrance, Ecstasy. Just as he reached the entrance to the meeting room where the announcement was scheduled to take place, Alexander felt a slight tug on the pocket of his suit jacket. Assuming it was just a stray thread, he brushed it off and continued on his way. Unbeknownst to him, someone had discreetly slipped a small tube of lip gloss into his pocket as she passed by. With a mischievous smile, she continued on her way, her heart pounding with excitement at the thought of being so close to Alexander. Inside the meeting room, as the team gathered to discuss the details of the campaign, Alexander took his seat at the head of the table, his mind buzzing with anticipation. Little did he know, the very person who had unknowingly slipped the lip gloss into his pocket would soon be revealed as the face of their latest fragrance. "We have the face of our latest fragrance, and it's none other than Melissa Adams," Catherine announced, her voice carrying a note of excitement as she revealed the much-anticipated news. As Catherine's words echoed in the conference room, all eyes turned towards the entrance. Melissa entered the conference room with a confident stride, her gaze locking onto Alexander's with a playful glint in her eyes. As all eyes turned to her, she flashed a dazzling smile, exuding an air of charm and allure. The team members exchanged murmurs of approval and nods of acknowledgement, impressed by Melissa's presence. Her beauty and charisma seemed to captivate everyone in the room, leaving no doubt that she was the perfect choice to represent the Ecstasy fragrance. Alexander's gaze lingered on Melissa for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly as he tried to place where he had seen her before. The memory of their encounter at the restaurant flickered in his mind, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Melissa than met the eye. Was this a coincidence? "Hello, everyone," Melissa said, her voice smooth and seductive. "I'm thrilled to be a part of this campaign and to represent the Ecstasy fragrance. It's an honor to work with such a prestigious company as LH Star." Her words were met with polite applause from the team, but Alexander's expression remained impassive as he studied her carefully. Nathan's gaze bore into Melissa with a hint of skepticism, his instincts telling him that there was more to her presence than met the eye. He couldn't shake the feeling that Melissa had ulterior motives, and he made a mental note to keep a close eye on her during the campaign. "What is she doing here? I thought I told her to stay away from Alexander," Nathan thought to himself as his gaze darted from Melissa towards Alexander. "What do you think about her, sir? Should we use her as the face of Ecstasy?" Richard asked Alexander. Alexander's gaze shifted to Melissa, his brow furrowing slightly as he considered her carefully. There was something about her that gave him pause, a nagging feeling of uncertainty that he couldn't quite shake. "She certainly has the look we're going for," Alexander said. Nathan frowned as he leaned in to whisper something in Alexander's ear. I don't think we should let her be the face of ecstasy, he advised, his voice laced with concern. Deep down, Nathan knew Melissa was the perfect fit for the campaign, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she had ulterior motives, especially when it came to Alexander. Why do you say so? Alexander inquired, his voice low and measured as he turned his attention back to Nathan. Nathan hesitated for a moment, his brow furrowing in thought. I just have a gut feeling, sir, he replied cautiously, his gaze darting towards Melissa before returning to Alexander. But if you believe she's the right choice, then I won't argue. As Melissa's eyes met Nathan's, she gave him a knowing smirk, causing Nathan's frown to deepen. He sensed there was more to Melissa's agenda than met the eye, and he vowed to keep a close watch on her interactions with Alexander. You haven't given me a better reason not to let her be the face of ecstasy, Nathan, Alexander responded in a hushed tone. That's final. Melissa would be the face of ecstasy, he announced decisively to everyone in the room, his voice carrying authority. Melissa's smile widened at Alexander's announcement, a triumphant glint in her eyes as she exchanged a knowing glance with Nathan. She had succeeded in securing her place as the face of the campaign, and she had Alexander right where she wanted him, or so she thought. Thank you, Alexander, Melissa said, her voice laced with seduction. I promise, you won't regret this decision. Ignoring Melissa's attempt at flirtation, Alexander remained composed. That's all for today, he stated firmly, signaling the end of the meeting. Melissa will be the face of ecstasy. His mind was already racing ahead to the thought of reuniting with Arya. The mere thought of her filled him with longing. He couldn't wait to be home, enveloped in her embrace, surrounded by the warmth of her love and to eat her food. Arya was such a good cook, and he loved eating anything prepared by her. Every moment away from her felt like an eternity, and he was eager to make up for lost time. With a sense of urgency, he made his way out of the conference room, his thoughts consumed by thoughts of Arya and the blissful reunion that awaited them. As he made his way towards the exit, Melissa approached him, her gaze fixed on him with unwavering determination. Despite her best efforts to charm him, Alexander remained resolute in his commitment to professionalism. Alexander, Melissa began, her voice tinged with flirtation. I just wanted to say thank you for choosing me as the face of ecstasy. I promise, I won't disappoint you. Alexander regarded her calmly, his demeanor composed as he replied, As long as you're working for LH Star, I'd prefer you call me Mr. Alexander. Melissa's smile faltered for a moment, a hint of frustration flashing across her features, before she quickly masked it with a seductive smile. Yes, Mr. Alexander, she said, her voice honeyed with false sweetness. Good, Alexander responded with a curt nod, signaling his intent to leave. As Alexander made his way towards the exit, Melissa subtly stepped closer, her eyes fixed on him with unwavering determination. She reached out to lightly touch his arm, causing him to pause momentarily. Please wait. Melissa's voice was soft but urgent as she approached Alexander. I just wanted to express my gratitude once again for choosing me as the face of ecstasy. It truly means a lot to me, Mr. Alexander. She smiled, her lips subtly bitten, a hint of flirtation in her demeanor. And it seems you don't seem to remember me anymore? I'm Melissa Adams, your classmate from high school. We met at a restaurant a few days ago. Alexander's gaze hardened as he looked at her hand on his arm, then shifted to meet her eyes with a questioning look. I expect nothing less than professionalism and dedication from you, Melissa, he replied, his voice conveying his discomfort with her touch. Melissa chuckled nervously, quickly retracting her hand. It seemed she wouldn't easily charm this man, but that wasn't her main goal anyway. Whether he succumbed to her seduction or not was inconsequential. She had something different from charming him as her main goal. Of course, Mr. Alexander. Professionalism is my top priority, and I won't. Melissa began, but Alexander cut her off. If you'll excuse me, I have other matters to attend to, Alexander said politely but firmly, effectively ending their conversation. Melissa's smile remained fixed as she watched Alexander leave, her gaze lingering on him with a hint of determination. "And what do you think you're trying to do?" Nathan's voice interrupted, drawing Melissa's attention. Melissa rolled her eyes inwardly, already growing tired of Nathan's interference. "I don't understand what you're saying," Melissa replied, her tone carefully neutral. Nathan smirked, his eyes glinting with amusement. "You're different from the last time," he remarked. Melissa raised a brow, feigning ignorance. "What do you mean?" she asked, though she had a sinking feeling she knew exactly what he meant. "Last time you were nothing but a shameless bitch, but now you're even more shameless," Nathan stated bluntly. Melissa scoffed angrily, her facade slipping for a moment. "I really don't know what you're getting at, but I won't tolerate any insults from you." "Who do you think you are?" she retorted, her voice laced with defiance. "Let me warn you again. Stay away from Alexander." Nathan emphasized each word, his tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. "What? Are you his watchdog now?" Melissa shot back, her frustration boiling over as she met Nathan's gaze head-on. Nathan's smirk widened at her reaction, his gaze unyielding as he met her defiant stare. "Just remember, Melissa, Alexander is off limits. You would do well to stay away from him if you know what's good for you," he warned, his voice firm and unwavering. Melissa's lips curled into a scornful smile as she tilted her head slightly, regarding Nathan with a mixture of amusement and disdain. "And who are you to dictate who I can and cannot associate with?" she challenged, her voice dripping with contempt. Nathan's eyes narrowed at her defiance. "I don't care about you, but I do care about Alexander. I know what you're trying to do. You're seducing him," Nathan would say. "What? Are you afraid I might snatch him from his wife?" Melissa stepped closer towards Nathan, her tone laced with defiance. "Huh?" Nathan swallowed a lump in his throat, his gaze steady despite the unease bubbling within him. "That would never work," he replied firmly. "Then why are you so worked up if you're so sure it wouldn't work? If you really think he won't fall for my seductions, then stop approaching me to stay away from him," Melissa shot back, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Nathan standing there, his mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. "Babe, I'm home," Alexander announced as he stepped through the front door, his voice filled with warmth and affection. Arya, who had just emerged from the bathroom with a slightly pale complexion, rushed towards him, her face lit up with a radiant smile. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him, enveloping him in a tight embrace. "I'm so happy you're home," she exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine joy. Alexander returned the hug, his laughter mingling with hers as they held each other close. "Me too," he replied, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "What were you up to?" Arya's smile faltered for a moment, a hint of embarrassment flickering across her features. "Oh, just a minor setback," she replied evasively, her cheeks flushing pink. "Let's not dwell on it. Tell me about your trip. How did the business deals go?" The anticipation in the company is unbearable. Alexander nodded understandingly, deciding not to press her further. "The trip went well," he began, his voice filled with excitement. "We managed to secure a major partnership that's going to elevate LH Star to new heights. The anticipation back at the office is nothing compared to how thrilled I am to be home with you." Arya's face lit up with delight, her heart swelling with pride for her husband's accomplishments. "That's amazing, Alexander. I knew you could do it," she exclaimed, planting another kiss on his cheek. Grinning, Alexander took her hand and led her to the couch, where they settled in comfortably, eager to catch up after being apart for several days. "So, tell me everything," Arya said eagerly, her eyes shining with curiosity. "How was your trip? Did you meet any interesting people?" Alexander chuckled, leaning back against the cushions as he recounted the highlights of his journey. "Well, there was this one woman at the conference who seemed determined to get my attention," he said, a playful twinkle in his eyes. "But don't worry, she didn't stand a chance against you." Arya laughed, playfully swatting his arm. "You always know how to make me feel special," she said, leaning in to rest her head on his shoulder. Okay. Now, let's go into the room to change you into something casual. A few moments later. Alexander's expression turned thoughtful as he reached into his pocket for his phone. I need to pee, he announced suddenly, rising from the bed and making his way to the restroom. As Alexander disappeared into the bathroom, Arya noticed something fall from his pocket. Curious, she bent down to pick it up, her brow furrowing in confusion when she realized it was a tube of red lip gloss. Her mind raced with questions as she tried to make sense of the discovery. Had Alexander bought it for her as a surprise? And what about the lipstick stain she had noticed on his shirt before he left for California? Perplexed, she'd recall a similar red stain on his shirt from the day before he left for California, sparking a wave of questions. Babe, did you get me anything from your trip? Like lip gloss or lipstick? Arya called out, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Alexander's response was swift, his concern evident in his tone. No, love. I'm so sorry, but getting you anything didn't cross my mind. Why do you ask? He inquired, his footsteps approaching from the bathroom. Arya swallowed back the surge of emotion threatening to overwhelm her as she struggled to maintain her composure. Nothing. It's nothing. I was just asking, she replied, her voice slightly strained. Alexander emerged from the bathroom, his gaze immediately drawn to the troubled expression on Arya's face. What's wrong? Are you crying? He asked, his voice filled with concern as he approached her. Arya shook her head quickly, blinking back the tears threatening to spill over. No, I'm not, she insisted, forcing a weak smile in an attempt to reassure him. Okay, if you say so, Alexander said, though his expression betrayed his lingering worry. Come, let me hold you. As Alexander wrapped his arms around her, Arya fought to suppress the torrent of emotions raging within her. Could Alexander really be cheating on her? Or was there a logical explanation for the lipstick stain and the tube of lip gloss? She knew she needed to confront him about her suspicions, but the fear of what she might uncover held her back. The recent lipstick stain and now the discovery of a mysterious lip gloss left her questioning everything. Yet she'd force herself to push aside the uncertainty. Perhaps there's a logical explanation, a gift for his mother or grandmother, or a gift for Jessica. With a resigned sigh, Arya chose to trust in Alexander, quelling her doubts for now. After all, she trusted Alexander with her heart, and she couldn't bear to entertain the thought that he would betray her trust. In the next 2 days, there's going to be a charity auction, and I'd love to take you there, Alexander said, his voice filled with enthusiasm as he shared the news with Arya. It's going to feature artworks from famous artists, and I know how much you love art, so... Arya's eyes widened in surprise at the unexpected invitation, her heart swelling with gratitude for Alexander's thoughtfulness. An auction? Featuring artworks by famous artists? She exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. That sounds amazing. I'd love to go, Alexander smiled, his eyes sparkling with affection as he gazed at her. I knew you'd be interested, he said, his voice warm with affection. It's for a good cause, and I thought it would be a perfect opportunity for us to spend some quality time together. Arya nodded eagerly, her heart fluttering with anticipation at the prospect of attending the auction with Alexander. I can't wait, she said, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Thank you for thinking of me. Alexander pressed a tender kiss to her forehead, his arms still wrapped around her. Anything for you, my love, he murmured. The following day, Alexander awoke to find the bed empty beside him, the absence of Arya's presence immediately catching his attention. Concern flickered in his eyes as he heard the faint sounds of someone retching from the bathroom. His heart sank as he realized it was Arya who was vomiting. Was she sick? Arya? He called out, his voice filled with worry. Shortly after, the toilet flushed, and Arya emerged from the bathroom, her complexion visibly pale. Are you all right? Why were you vomiting? Alexander asked, his concern deepening as he approached her. Arya wiped her face with her hand, exhaustion evident in her eyes as she spoke. I don't know. I've been feeling feverish for the past 4 days. I don't know what's happening, she admitted wearily. Alexander furrowed his brow, reaching out to feel her forehead for any signs of a fever. His expression turned puzzled when he found no evidence of an elevated temperature. But you're not running a fever. Have you seen a doctor? He inquired. Arya bit her lip, hesitating before responding. No, I haven't. I thought it wasn't anything serious, since it comes and goes, she explained. That's not good, babe. Let me get dressed and I'll take you to the hospital for a checkup, Alexander insisted, his worry about Arya's well-being evident in his voice. Arya smiled gratefully, but she didn't want to inconvenience him or make him miss his important meetings. You don't have to, really, she protested. Why not? Alexander's concern only grew. Besides this, something else seems to be bothering you, Arya. Yesterday I saw you crying, but you brushed it off as nothing. I respected your privacy then, but now I feel hurt when you try to keep things from me, he confessed, wrapping his arm around her waist. Tell me what's on your mind. Was it because I didn't bring you anything from my trip? Arya met his gaze, her expression serious as she finally revealed the source of her distress. I found a red lip gloss in your suit jacket pocket, she confessed, watching his reaction closely. Alexander's frown deepened, his mind racing as he struggled to recall any encounter that could explain the presence of the lip gloss. I don't remember buying anything like that, let alone being in contact with any woman who might have left it in my pocket, he replied, genuine confusion clouding his features. Arya's expression softened with relief, recognizing the sincerity in Alexander's words. Despite her initial concern, she felt reassured by his honesty and the evident perplexity regarding the mysterious lip gloss. However, a hint of lingering curiosity remained, as she couldn't shake the question of how the lip gloss ended up in his pocket. Arya let out a sigh of relief, grateful for Alexander's honesty and reassurance. I believe you, Alexander, she said, her voice soft with relief. I'm sorry for jumping to conclusions. It must have been a misunderstanding. However, a small furrow appeared on her brow as she added, but I still can't figure out how that lip gloss ended up in your pocket. Alexander sighed, feeling the weight of Arya's words sink in. His hand remained wrapped around her waist, offering silent support as she spoke. Me too, he replied softly, his gaze searching hers with concern. Then, as her confession unfolded, disbelief flickered across his features. Wait, were you thinking that I could be cheating on you? He asked, his voice tinged with incredulity. Guilt flashed on Arya's face. Alexander's scoff was a mix of incredulity and disbelief. What? He uttered, his tone tinged with surprise as the realization dawned on him. No wonder you told me nothing was wrong with you because you were suspecting me of cheating. I really can't believe this. His voice betrayed a hint of hurt as he processed her suspicion. So if I hadn't asked you this question again, then you would have continued suspecting me of cheating and wouldn't have confided in me, he concluded, his words carrying a sense of disappointment. Arya's guilt was palpable as she met his gaze, her expression reflecting a mixture of remorse and sadness. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I was confused. From the lipstick stain on your shirt to finding lip gloss in your pocket, I'm sorry, I really am sorry. Her tears flowed freely now, her words choked with regret. I should have asked you, she added, her voice barely above a whisper. Alexander's initial disbelief gave way to understanding as he wrapped his arms around her, drawing her close in a comforting embrace. His heart was heavy with the realization of how deeply her suspicions had affected her. No, it's okay, he reassured her, his voice gentle as he pressed a kiss on her forehead. I understand why you were worried, but please know that I would never betray your trust like that. You mean everything to me, and I would never do anything to hurt you. He paused, his gaze tender as he brushed away her tears. Let's promise to always communicate openly with each other, no matter what. We're a team, and we'll get through anything together. I love you, Alexander, Arya said, her voice filled with sincerity. I love you too, Alexander replied, his words brimming with affection. Well, since you don't want me to take you to the hospital, then I'll ask Jessica to do so for me. A few moments later, Alexander emerged from the walk-in closet, his attire impeccable as always. Arya sat at the vanity mirror, her focus on applying a light layer of makeup to her face. Bending down, Alexander placed a tender kiss on her cheek, eliciting a smile from Arya as she glanced at him in the mirror. You've gotten a little chubby, and I like that, he remarked with a playful grin. Arya chuckled softly. Chubby, you say? I've been throwing up most of the food I eat ever since you left for your trip. So how come I appear chubby to you? She quipped, raising an eyebrow in amusement. I hope you aren't sick or anything. When you get to the hospital, call me or make a video call. I want to know what's wrong with you, so I can take care of you better, Alexander said, his concern evident in his voice. Arya smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude for his unwavering care and support. Leaning in, she tilted her head to kiss him gently. Returning her affectionate gesture with a smile, Alexander reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card, offering it to Arya. Here. You can buy or get anything you want with this card. It's yours from now on, he said, his tone filled with generosity. Arya's eyes widened in shock as she took the card, realizing its significance. A black card, with its unlimited spending power, was a gesture of trust and love beyond measure. Arya's eyes widened in disbelief as she held the black card in her trembling hands. The weight of its significance felt almost surreal to her, and she struggled to find the right words to express her astonishment. Alexander, I don't know what to say, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. It's so incredibly generous of you. I don't even know how to thank you. Tears of gratitude welled up in her eyes as she looked at him, overwhelmed by the depth of his love and generosity. It was a gesture that surpassed anything she could have imagined, and it filled her heart with an indescribable warmth. Thank you, Alexander, she finally managed to say, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you for everything. With a tender smile, Alexander gazed at Arya, his eyes shining with adoration. You're my queen, Arya, he declared softly, his voice filled with sincerity. And I'd do anything to see you happy. You deserve the world, and I'll spend every moment of my life trying to give it to you. His words were a testament to the depth of his love, a promise to always cherish and honor her as his queen. Arya's heart swelled with love and gratitude, knowing she was truly cherished by the man she adored. Thank you, my king, she replied, her voice filled with love. As Arya sat across from Jessica in her office, she felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. She needed to confide in someone. Jessica, I don't know where to start, Arya began. Something strange happened last night when Alexander got back from his trip. Jessica listened intently, her expression sympathetic as she encouraged Arya to continue. Well, when Alexander came home some days back, I noticed a red stain on his shirt, Arya recounted, her brow furrowing with concern. I didn't think much of it at the time, but then I found a tube of red lip gloss in his pocket. Jessica's eyes widened in surprise as she processed Arya's words. Lip gloss? She repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. Arya nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she struggled to articulate her thoughts. Yes, lip gloss, she confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. I know it sounds crazy, but I can't shake this feeling that something isn't right. Jessica reached out to gently squeeze Arya's hand in a gesture of comfort. I understand why you're worried, Arya, she said reassuringly. But have you considered that there might be a logical explanation for all of this? Jessica, I did talk to Alexander about it, Arya began, her gaze fixed on Jessica as she relayed the conversation. He seemed genuinely surprised when I mentioned the lipstick stain and the lip gloss. Jessica listened intently, her brow furrowing with concern, as Arya continued. He told me he had no idea how the lipstick stain got on his shirt or where the lip gloss came from, Arya explained, her voice tinged with uncertainty, And I believe him, Jessica. But Arya's words trailed off, her expression clouded with doubt as she struggled to articulate her feelings. But what, Arya? Jessica prompted gently, reaching out to squeeze Arya's hand in a gesture of support. Arya swallowed hard, her eyes brimming with tears as she voiced her deepest fear. But I can't help but feel someone is trying to create confusion and distrust in our marriage, she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. Jessica looked at Arya in understanding. Arya, it's natural to have doubts and fears, especially when things seem uncertain, Jessica reassured her, her voice gentle, yet firm. But you and Alexander have a strong foundation built on trust and love. Don't let these questions tear you apart. Trust in your relationship and trust in Alexander's love for you. Arya nodded slowly. I won't let this come between us, Arya said. Now tell me, what was the reason my brother called me to take you to the hospital? Are you still throwing up? Jessica inquired, her concern evident in her voice. Arya nodded, her expression weary. Yes, I am. I get hungry frequently, and when I do eat, I throw everything up later on. I'm exhausted, Jess, she admitted, her voice tinged with fatigue. Jessica's smile faltered momentarily as she processed Arya's symptoms. Then a realization dawned on her. Why don't you take a pregnancy test? She suggested, her tone hopeful. Arya's eyes widened in surprise. What? Are you trying to say that I might be pregnant? She asked, her voice tinged with a mixture of shock and excitement. Well, we have one way to know, and that's by doing a test, Jessica replied, her own excitement bubbling to the surface. She stood up from her seat, determination in her stride, and picked up the office phone. With swift efficiency, she placed a call, requesting someone to bring a pregnancy test kit to her office. Arya's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and trepidation at Jessica's suggestion. Could it be possible? Was she really pregnant with Alexander's child? As Jessica made the call to request the pregnancy test kit, Arya's mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions. She felt a surge of joy at the thought of carrying Alexander's baby, their own little miracle. But alongside the excitement, there was a lingering sense of fear. What if the test came back negative? What if her symptoms were caused by something else entirely? Her hands trembled slightly as she clasped them together in her lap, her mind consumed with thoughts of what the future might hold. Would she be ready to become a mother? Could she handle the responsibilities that came with raising a child? And most importantly, would Alexander be as thrilled about the prospect of fatherhood as she was about motherhood? As she awaited the arrival of the pregnancy test kit, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness. I'm sure Alexander would be beyond excited when he finds out. That's if you're pregnant, Jessica said, smiling. A few moments later, as Jessica received the pregnancy test kit from the person who brought it, she turned to Arya with a reassuring smile. Placing a comforting hand on Arya's shoulder, Jessica spoke gently, her voice filled with warmth and encouragement. Arya, whatever the outcome of this test, just know that I'm here for you every step of the way, Jessica said, her eyes reflecting support. You're strong, and no matter what happens, we'll face it together. She handed the test kit to Arya, offering her a reassuring nod. Take your time, and whenever you're ready, go ahead and use the test. Remember, whatever the result, you have a loving support system here to lean on, Jessica added, her tone unwaveringly supportive. With a heartfelt smile, Jessica squeezed Arya's shoulder gently before giving her a moment of privacy to take the test. She remained nearby, ready to offer comfort and support no matter what the outcome might be. Arya's hands trembled slightly as she carefully followed the instructions on the pregnancy test kit. With a deep breath, she peed on the stick, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation. Sitting on the edge of the toilet seat, she waited anxiously for the result, her mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. As the minutes ticked by, each second felt like an eternity. Finally, a single line appeared on the test, followed by another. Arya's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the 2 lines in disbelief. Tears welled up in her eyes, a mixture of joy and uncertainty washing over her. Jess. I saw 2 lines. What does that mean? Arya's voice trembled with emotion as she called out to Jessica, her heart pounding in her chest. The realization that she might indeed be pregnant with Alexander's child filled her with a sense of overwhelming joy, yet it was tempered by the fear of the unknown. Jessica's gasp echoed through the room, mirroring Arya's own shock and disbelief. That means, you're pregnant. You're pregnant, Arya, Jessica exclaimed excitedly, her voice filled with joy. Arya's breath caught in her throat as tears welled up in her eyes, cascading down her cheeks in a rush of emotion. She could hardly believe it. I am pregnant? She whispered to herself, her voice trembling with overwhelming emotion. Using her palm to cover her mouth, she stared down at the test kit in her hand, the 2 lines confirming what she had hoped and prayed for. She was carrying Alexander's child. Arya emerged from the bathroom with a radiant smile on her face, her eyes glistening with tears of joy. Jessica looked at her, her own eyes brimming with happiness, and without a word, she pulled Arya into a tight hug. I'm so happy for you, Arya, Jessica whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Arya returned the hug, feeling overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding her. Thank you, Jessica, she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. I can't believe this is happening. As they pulled apart, Jessica wiped away her tears, a wide smile gracing her lips. I can't believe I'm going to be an aunt, she exclaimed, her excitement palpable. Arya chuckled, feeling a surge of affection for her friend. But you're already an aunt with Ethan's children, she teased gently. Jessica rolled her eyes playfully. Please let me enjoy this moment, she retorted with a grin. I'm sure Mason would be thrilled to have a little one around. Arya nodded in agreement, her heart swelling with anticipation at the thought of sharing the news with Alexander. I need to tell Alexander, she declared, her voice filled with determination. I'm going to go tell him about the good news. Yes, tell him, Arya. He would be beyond happy. I will drive you to LH Star if you want, Jessica said. But what about going to the hospital? Arya shook her head, her excitement bubbling over. We'll go later. Right now, I just want to share this moment with Alexander, she said, her eyes shining with excitement. I can't wait to see his reaction. Jessica and Arya emerged from Jessica's office, greeted by the sight of Jessica's 2 imposing bodyguards waiting to escort them. With practiced precision, the bodyguards opened the car door, allowing the women to slide into the back seat before driving off to LH Star. Upon arriving at LH Star, Arya was greeted warmly by the employees as she made her way through the bustling office. Good afternoon, Ma'am Arya. They greeted her respectfully, their eyes darting curiously to Jessica, who walked beside her in an amused state. Jessica Harrington's presence always sparked interest and admiration wherever she went. I'll wait here for you while you talk to Alex, Jessica said, her tone light but supportive as she gestured towards the elevator. Arya nodded in gratitude before making her way towards the elevator, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation, knowing that she was about to share the most joyful news with Alexander. As the elevator doors closed, enveloping her in a quiet space, Arya's mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions. Her hand instinctively moved to cradle her abdomen, a tender gesture towards the life growing inside her. The thought of becoming a mother filled her with a profound sense of awe and wonder. She imagined Alexander's reaction when he heard the news, picturing his face lighting up with joy and disbelief. The mere thought brought a smile to her lips, her heart swelling with love for the man she adored. As the elevator dinged open, Arya stepped out with renewed determination, her steps echoing with purpose as she made her way towards Alexander's office. However, her resolve faltered when the door swung open and a woman came out, her appearance disheveled as if she had been engaged in an intimate encounter. Arya's brow furrowed in confusion and concern. Who was this woman, and what was she doing in Alexander's office? Dread gnawed at her insides as she contemplated the possibilities. her mind racing with a million questions. Melissa smirked and quickly buttoned up her shirt, her gaze meeting Arya's with a hint of arrogance. "Well, well, if it isn't the dutiful wife paying a surprise visit to her husband," she remarked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Arya's brow furrowed in confusion and concern at Melissa's disheveled appearance and snide remark. Her mind raced with a whirlwind of questions, her emotions a tumultuous mix of shock and disbelief. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Arya demanded, her voice firm as she sought answers. Melissa's smirk widened into a smug grin as she stepped forward, her posture oozing with confidence. "Oh, just a friendly visit to discuss some business matters with Mr. Harrington," she replied cryptically, her tone laced with implication. Arya's heart sank as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, her emotions ranging from anger to betrayal. How could Alexander do this to her? And who was this woman? And what was she really doing in Alexander's office? But amidst the storm of emotions, one thought shone through with unwavering clarity. She needed answers, and she needed them now. With a steely resolve, Arya squared her shoulders and met Melissa's gaze head-on. "I'll be the judge of that," she said firmly, her voice tinged with determination, "and I'll be having a word with my husband about this." Ignoring Melissa's smug smirk, Arya brushed past her and stepped into Alexander's office, her heart heavy with uncertainty and fear of what she might find. But two things were certain. She was going to trust her husband and wouldn't let anyone or anything create doubts in their marriage. As Arya walked into Alexander's office, she noticed him engrossed in documents on his desk. Alexander sat in his office chair, poring over documents on his desk. Frustration tinged his voice. "I thought I instructed you to handle matters with Nathan and avoid coming to my office unannounced. Why are—" His irritation dissipated abruptly as he lifted his head and noticed that it was Arya standing before him, not Melissa. "Arya." Alexander's voice softened as he stood up from his chair, worry etched on his face. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at the hospital? Why didn't you call me? Are you okay?" he asked, walking towards her. Arya hugged him tightly, her pout fading into a smile. "I didn't go to the hospital," she confessed. Confusion clouded Alexander's expression. "Why?" "But I asked Jessica to take you since you didn't want me to go with you," he reminded her. Arya nodded. "Yes, but we found out what was wrong by ourselves," she explained. Then her expression turned serious. "By the way, who was that woman?" she asked, her tone indicating her suspicion. Alexander's frown deepened. "That was Melissa, the model for ecstasy," he replied. "She came here earlier to discuss an issue with the shoot." Arya's gaze hardened as she made a connection. "I noticed she had the same lip color as the lip gloss," she pointed out. Alexander's eyes widened in realization. "She was the one who bumped into me at the restaurant," he recalled, the pieces clicking into place. "That must be how I got the red stain on my shirt." Arya's mind raced with possibilities as she pieced together the clues. "Someone is trying to create doubts in our marriage," she concluded, her voice tinged with frustration. "But why? And how do they know about my past with Ryan?" "Don't let it consume you," Alexander urged, his voice filled with reassurance. "No one can manipulate us as long as we trust each other. What I am concerned about is why are you here and not resting at home? And what did you guys find out by yourselves?" Arya's expression softened as she met his gaze. Then, with a shy smile, she delivered her unexpected news. "Am pregnant, Alex," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Alexander's expression softened as Arya's words sank in, the initial concern giving way to a mixture of surprise and overwhelming joy. His eyes widened in disbelief, his mind struggling to process the unexpected news. "Pregnant?" he repeated, his voice filled with disbelief. "Are you sure?" Arya nodded, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation as she awaited Alexander's reaction. She watched as a myriad of emotions flickered across his features. Surprise, disbelief, and finally, unbridled happiness. A wide smile spread across Alexander's face as he enveloped Arya in a warm embrace, his heart overflowing with love and excitement. "Arya, that's incredible news!" he exclaimed, his voice filled with uncontainable joy. "I can't believe it. We're going to have a baby." Tears of happiness welled up in Arya's eyes as she hugged Alexander tightly, feeling the weight of their shared happiness wash over her. It was a moment she had dreamed of, a moment she had feared might never come. And now that it was here, she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude and love. "I can't believe it either," Arya whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm so happy, Alexander. I'm so grateful to have you by my side." Alexander pressed a tender kiss to her forehead, his heart swelling with love for the woman he adored. "I love you, Arya," he murmured, his voice filled with sincerity. "And I promise to be the best husband and father I can be. We'll get through this together every step of the way." With their arms wrapped around each other, Arya and Alexander stood together in silent awe. At Harrington's castle in Grandma Yolanda's office, Ethan, Julian, and their father, Gabriel, awaited her arrival for an important meeting. Speculation brewed among them, particularly Ethan and Julian, about the purpose of the gathering, with thoughts lingering on the succession of Harrington Enterprise. Julian, wearing a confident and sly smile, harbored aspirations of being chosen as the next successor. As the door swung open, they rose from their seats, welcoming Grandma Yolanda's entrance with respectful nods. With the aid of her gold walking stick, she made her way into the room. "Mother, let me assist you to your seat," Gabriel offered, but Grandma Yolanda brushed off his offer. "Good afternoon, Grandma. Do you need any assistance?" Julian inquired, only to receive a sharp retort from Grandma Yolanda. "Do I look paralyzed to you?" "I can manage just fine," she replied curtly. Ethan stifled a laugh at his brother's expense, prompting Julian to shoot him a disdainful look. "Let's see how that smile on your face lasts when I become the next successor," Julian muttered to himself, his gaze fixed on Ethan's confident demeanor. Grandma Yolanda settled into her seat, and Ethan, Julian, and Gabriel followed suit. "I called this meeting to discuss how I will decide the next successor of Harrington Enterprise. Now that we are all present, I will proceed with." Grandma Yolanda's words trailed off as she noticed Alexander's absence, furrowing her brows in concern. "Where is Alexander? Why isn't he here?" she questioned, her tone demanding an explanation. Julian's frown deepened, his mind racing with questions about Alexander's unexpected absence. Confusion clouded his mind. Why did Alexander need to be present? Could he be considered for succession? Gabriel's gaze fell with a mixture of regret, guilt, and shame as Grandma Yolanda directed her inquiry towards him. "I'm asking a question, Gabriel, and I expect an answer. Why isn't Alexander here? Did you even call him?" Grandma Yolanda pressed, her tone firm. Gabriel swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Grandma Yolanda's disappointment. I called his secretary, but I was informed he wasn't in the city," he admitted, his voice betraying his unease. Grandma Yolanda scoffed at Gabriel's explanation. "You called his secretary? What happened to calling his personal cell phone?" she rebuked. "I understand why you can't face him. You're burdened by guilt and shame from the years of insults and embarrassment you've inflicted on Alexander. Now that you know his identity, you can't even bear to look at him, let alone talk to him. Your underestimation of your son has led to all of this. You can't even meet his eyes, let alone speak to him," she chastised, her words laced with disappointment. Gabriel remained silent, weighed down by the remorse of his past actions. If only he had known Alexander was the CEO of LH Star, he wouldn't have underestimated him. He regretted ever seeing Alexander as a failure. "Yes, Mother. I regret my past actions," Gabriel admitted quietly. Julian's gaze hardened, his fists clenched in frustration. What does Alexander's presence have to do with this meeting? He isn't even part of our company. Alexander's presence matters because he's family. And this isn't just our company, Julian. It's mine. I decide who will succeed me. If we're not all present today, then this meeting is invalid, Grandma Yolanda asserted firmly. That's unfair, Grandma. We're all employees of your company, and Alexander hasn't contributed anything. Why should his presence be necessary? Julian argued through gritted teeth. Very well, if you insist. But Julian, do you truly believe you're fit to be the next successor? You haven't even settled down. If I were to choose anyone, it would be one of your brothers. I need someone composed and capable, both at work and in their personal life, Grandma Yolanda stated pointedly. Julian seethed with anger at the realization that his aspirations might be in jeopardy. Ethan couldn't resist a taunt, eliciting a glare from Julian. You don't have to worry about settling down, Julian. After all, you have a girlfriend, but it's been a while since we've seen her. What was her name again? Oh, right. Elena, Ethan remarked mockingly, his sly smile fueling Julian's frustration. In a fit of anger, Julian rose from his seat, his frustration boiling over. I have worked so hard for this company, Grandma, he declared defiantly. Call me when you have gotten Alexander. Then maybe I might continue with this meeting, Grandma Yolanda retorted coolly, rising from her seat and exiting the room. With clenched fists, Julian stormed out of the office, his footsteps echoing down the hallway with Ethan following closely behind, the tension palpable in their wake. Ethan's smile widened as he watched Julian storm away in anger. Julian, he called out in a mocking tone, but Julian kept walking. Ethan quickly caught up with him, trying to engage him. Didn't you hear me calling your name? He teased. Julian turned abruptly, grabbing Ethan by the shirt and pinning him against the wall. Yes, I heard you, but I didn't want to answer. What were you doing earlier? Were you really mocking me? Julian demanded, his voice laced with frustration. Ethan smirked, unfazed by Julian's grip. I enjoy seeing you worked up like this. It must be painful, right? Having someone try to take what you've worked so hard for. That's how I felt when Father started favoring you over me, he taunted. Julian retorted, Aren't you ashamed of letting your juniors steal from you? No wonder Father and Grandma never liked you. Ethan shot back, The feeling's mutual now. Gritting his teeth, Julian looked at Ethan with disdain. You must be thrilled to see this happening to me, but it won't last long, he warned. Ethan remained unfazed. It will, Julian, he replied confidently. Julian scoffed. You're no match for me, Ethan. You're nothing but a sissy. Ethan's frown deepened, and he struck Julian. Shut your mouth, Julian, he snapped. What? Angry now, are we? You started this, fool. You messed with the wrong person, Julian retorted. Ethan's lips curled into a sly smile. Let's see if you'll still say that after everyone finds out what you did, he threatened. Julian's scoff turned into a glare, his expression darkening with rage. What the hell are you talking about? He demanded. Ethan chuckled, relishing in Julian's discomfort. I wonder if you'll still be considered as a successor if everyone gets to know the truth. Elena told me everything, little brother, he taunted. Julian's anger flared even more. Elena? What are you talking about? You're sick, he spat out. Ethan's grin widened. I'm not the sick one here. You are. Elena told me everything. How you had her come to Seattle to ruin Alexander's reputation, and how you threatened and abused her. She has evidence, he revealed. Julian's eyes widened momentarily before he quickly masked his reaction with a scowl. That's nonsense. Elena's just spewing lies. I shouldn't have let her leave, he muttered to himself. What? Cat got your tongue? Ethan prodded when Julian remained silent, his tone dripping with mockery. She has evidence, and I'm going to ensure she hands it over to me. Then, I'll release it to the whole world. That's when you'll be completely ruined, Julian, Ethan declared with a determined tone. Ethan's threat hung heavy in the air as he declared his intentions to expose Julian's wrongdoing. But Julian remained composed, a sly smile curling on his lips. You think some evidence will ruin me? You're completely naive, he scoffed. Ethan's shock at Julian's apparent confidence quickly turned to arrogance. Get down from your high horse and beg your senior brother, Julian. I won't release the evidence unless you kneel before me and withdraw from the company. Telling Grandma you don't want to be the successor, Ethan demanded. Julian's disbelief turned to disdain. You really have no clue who you're dealing with, Ethan. I won't grovel at your feet for anything, he retorted. Frustrated, Ethan gritted his teeth. Then you leave me no choice, he muttered, turning to leave. Ethan's departure left Julian seething with anger, his gaze darkening with resolve as he watched his brother walk away. You leave me no choice either, Ethan, Julian muttered under his breath, retrieving his phone from his pocket. As I said before, you're nothing but foolish. Why would you inform me about the evidence when you haven't obtained it yet? Julian scoffed as he tapped a specific number on his phone, ensuring no prying eyes were upon him. The phone rang once, twice, before a voice answered from the background noise of a bustling nightclub. Yes, boss? The man's voice greeted. Julian's tone was cold and direct. I have a job for you, he stated, his eyes scanning his surroundings to ensure his privacy. That sounds intriguing. I've been wondering why you haven't reached out lately, the man replied casually, the sound of faint moans in the background. Her name is Elena Sterling, Julian said, his voice hardened with determination. Take care of her, he ordered. Got it. Any specific instructions? The man inquired. Make it quick and clean. No mistakes, Julian instructed firmly before ending the call. His gaze shifted to where Ethan had disappeared, a dangerous glint in his eyes. You really don't know what I'm capable of, Julian muttered, his tone filled with deadly intent. You shouldn't have opened your big mouth, Elena. You told the wrong person the truth. My foolish brother, for that matter. Now I have no other choice but to eliminate you, he said through gritted teeth. As Arya and Alexander shared their joyous moment, the atmosphere in the office became filled with warmth and affection. Alexander's heart swelled with love for his wife, his mind buzzing with thoughts of their future together. He couldn't resist the overwhelming urge to express his love and devotion to Arya, to let her know that he would do anything to make her happy. With tender affection, Alexander leaned in to press a loving kiss to Arya's lips, his touch gentle and filled with passion. He poured his heart into the kiss, conveying all the love and adoration he felt for her in that moment. As they pulled apart, Alexander's eyes sparkled with tenderness as he gazed into Arya's eyes. What do you feel like doing, my love? He whispered softly, his voice filled with sincerity. I'll leave my work and take you anywhere you want to go, get you anything you desire. Just name it, and it's yours. Arya's heart swelled with love at Alexander's words, touched by his unwavering devotion. She smiled warmly, feeling a sense of contentment wash over her. All I want is to be with you, Alexander, she confessed, her voice filled with love. I just want to sit cozily on the couch with you at home, wrapped in your arms, and watch Netflix. Alexander's eyes softened with affection as he listened to Arya's simple request. Of course, my dear, he replied, his voice filled with warmth. I'll make sure everything is ready for us when we get home. Is there anything else you're craving? I know how pregnant women can have demanding cravings. Arya chuckled softly, feeling grateful for Alexander's thoughtfulness. Just movies and popcorn, she replied with a smile. As long as I'm with you, I have everything I need. As they walked out of Alexander's office, Benita approached him with a stack of documents in her hand. Good afternoon, Arya, Benita greeted Arya warmly. Good afternoon, Arya replied with a smile, feeling Alexander's hand resting on the small of her back, radiating warmth through her body. Alexander turned to address Benita, his tone firm but composed. I won't be back until further notice. Please give these documents to Nathan or Richard for review, he instructed, gesturing towards the papers in Benita's hand. And make sure Melissa doesn't cause any trouble. I've warned her not to come to my office for any reason. She should address her concerns to you or Nathan. Is that clear? Yes, sir. I'll ensure she understands, Benita affirmed, nodding in understanding. Alexander nodded in satisfaction before turning to walk away, with Arya by his side. After arriving home, Arya made her way to their bedroom to change into something more comfortable. She slipped into a floral short gown, feeling the soft fabric against her skin as she admired herself in the mirror. With a satisfied smile, she headed to the kitchen where Alexander was busy preparing popcorn. "Hey, Alex," Arya greeted him, her voice warm with affection. Alexander turned to see Arya approaching, his eyes lighting up at the sight of her. "You look amazing," he complimented, his gaze lingering on her figure. "I mean, you always do, but now that you're pregnant, you've become even more stunning. I can't wait to see that baby bump on you. When do you think the baby will start kicking?" Arya blushed at Alexander's words, feeling a rush of warmth flood her cheeks. "Oh, Alex," she exclaimed, laughing softly. "I have no idea when the baby will start kicking. This is my first time, remember? How would I know?" Alexander mentally scolded himself for his silly question, but he couldn't help but be overwhelmed by excitement. He walked up to Arya, gently cupping her cheeks in his hands. "I'm sorry, love. I guess I'm just too eager," he confessed. Arya chuckled, leaning into his touch. "It's okay, Alex, I understand. You're just excited, and that's a good thing. You're going to be an amazing father," she reassured him, her eyes sparkling with love. The thought of becoming a father again filled Alexander's heart with joy. "I'll make an appointment with our family doctor to check on you. Once we know everything's okay, we can still make it to the auction," he suggested. Arya nodded in agreement, a smile playing on her lips. "The auction? I almost forgot," she admitted. "It's okay if you did." "I didn't," Alexander replied with a grin, turning back to check on the popcorn. "Actually, let's skip the talk about the auction for now," Alexander suggested with a playful grin. "How about we go to the living room now? The popcorn is ready," Alexander exclaimed. Arya's face lit up with excitement at the suggestion. "That sounds perfect," she agreed, her heart fluttering with anticipation. They made their way to the living room, where Alexander set up the TV, while Arya settled onto the couch, feeling a sense of warmth and contentment wash over her. They decided to watch Bridgerton, a series Arya had been meaning to start for a while. As they watched the show, Arya couldn't help but be drawn into the captivating storyline and the mesmerizing romance unfolding on screen. The chemistry between the characters was palpable, and she found herself getting lost in the allure of their love story. Sitting between Alexander's legs, Arya leaned back against his chest, feeling his arms wrap around her in a protective embrace. She snuggled closer to him, relishing the comfort of his presence as they watched the drama unfold on screen. Her cheeks flushed a deep shade of red as the characters shared a passionate kiss, and she couldn't help but steal glances at Alexander, feeling a rush of desire course through her veins. His closeness, his touch, it all felt so intimate and exhilarating. As the episode came to an end, Arya reached for a handful of popcorn, popping it into her mouth with a soft crunch. She felt Alexander's grip tighten around her, pulling her even closer as they settled into a comfortable position on the couch. Their bodies intertwined, their hearts beating in sync as they lost themselves in the world of Bridgerton, each moment filled with love, laughter, and an undeniable sense of connection. As the next episode of Bridgerton began to play, Arya shifted slightly in Alexander's embrace, feeling a sense of contentment wash over her. She looked up at him, her eyes sparkling with affection. "This show is amazing," she remarked, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "I can't believe I waited this long to start watching it." Alexander smiled down at her, his gaze filled with warmth. "I'm glad you finally did. It's the perfect way to spend the evening," he replied, his voice soft and gentle. Arya nestled closer to him, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. "I agree," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I love moments like this, just the two of us, enjoying each other's company." Alexander pressed a tender kiss to the top of her head, his heart swelling with love. "Me too," he murmured, his voice filled with sincerity. "I cherish every moment we spend together, Arya." You mean everything to me." Arya's heart fluttered at his words, feeling a surge of emotion welling up inside her. She turned to him, her eyes searching his, and for a moment, they simply gazed at each other, lost in the depths of their love. "I love you, Alexander," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I love you too, Arya," he replied, his voice filled with equal fervor. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, the heat between them intensified, sending shivers down Arya's spine. Alexander's hands moved with a gentle urgency, exploring her body with a hunger that mirrored her own. As his lips trailed down her neck, Arya's breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding with desire. She arched into his touch, her fingers tangling in his hair as she pulled him closer. When Alexander's hands moved to cup her breasts, Arya gasped, a surge of pleasure coursing through her. His touch was electric, sending waves of sensation through her body, igniting a fire that burned with an intensity she had never felt before. "Do you think this is okay now that you're pregnant?" Alexander asked, his voice laced with concern as he paused, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. Arya nodded, her own desire overwhelming any lingering doubts. "Yes, it's completely okay," she breathed, her voice husky with desire. "Just touch me, Alexander. I want you." With a surge of passion, Alexander continued to explore her body, his touch sending her senses reeling. Arya's hands moved with a feverish urgency, trailing down Alexander's chest and lower, her touch igniting a primal need within him. As her fingers danced along his skin, Alexander's breath hitched, his body responding eagerly to her touch. With a boldness born of desire, Arya's hands ventured lower, tracing the contours of his body with a hunger that mirrored his own. As her touch grew bolder, Alexander's senses were overwhelmed with a rush of pleasure, his body yearning for more. Alexander swiftly turned her over on the couch, her legs locked around his waist in a tight embrace. Their gazes met, filled with a shared need that spoke volumes without a single word. As Arya looked up at him with anticipation, Alexander's hands moved to unbuckle his jeans, his movements fueled by a primal desire to fulfill their mutual longing. With each passing moment, the air between them crackled with electricity, their passion building to a fever pitch. The following day, Arya and Alexander emerged from their bedroom. Arya was wrapped in Alexander's arms as they made their way to the living room. "I want ice cream," Arya said jokingly, her lips forming a playful pout. Alexander raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "I know you're joking, right?" he asked, a teasing smile tugging at his lips. Arya blinked her lashes like a child, her expression earnest. "No. I want chocolate flavor, strawberry, and banana," she insisted with a grin. Alexander chuckled at her persistence. "If that's what you want, I'll get it for you. But first, the doctor needs to check you. We have to make sure you're eating the right things for you and the baby. We need more fruits and vegetables in this house," he said, gently setting her down on the couch. "Actually, I think this house is too small for us now that we're going to have a child. I'll instruct the maids at my mansion to prepare it. We'll be living there starting tomorrow," he declared. Arya listened to Alexander's plans for their future, her heart swelling with love. As he mentioned moving to his mansion, she couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and apprehension at the thought of their growing family. "Alexander, are you sure about moving to the mansion?" Arya asked, her tone tinged with uncertainty. "I mean, this house has been our home since we got married, and it has so many memories." Alexander paused, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "I understand, Arya, but the mansion has more space, and it's better equipped to accommodate our expanding family," he explained gently, his hand reaching out to cup her cheek. "And besides, we can always come back here whenever we want. This will always be our home." Arya's eyes welled up with tears at his reassuring words, her heart overflowing with love for the man who always knew how to comfort her. "Thank you, Alexander," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Before she could say anything more, the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the doctor and nurse. Alexander hurried to answer them, greeting them with a warm smile as he ushered them inside. "Good afternoon, Dr. Martinez," Alexander said, extending his hand in greeting. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." Dr. Martinez returned Alexander's smile, shaking his hand firmly. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harrington," he replied warmly. "It's my pleasure to be of assistance. And please, call me Luis." As they exchanged pleasantries, Arya joined them, offering a polite smile to the doctor and nurse. "Hello, Dr. Martinez," she said politely. "Thank you for seeing me today." Dr. Martinez nodded in acknowledgement, his demeanor calm and professional. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Harrington," he said kindly. "I'm here to ensure both you and your baby are in good health." With that, the doctor and nurse began the examination, their movements gentle and precise as they checked Arya's vital signs and asked her a series of questions about her health and well-being. Arya answered each question thoughtfully, her expression a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Throughout the examination, Alexander stood by Arya's side, his hand resting reassuringly on her shoulder. He exchanged a knowing glance with Arya, silently conveying their shared hope and excitement for the future. Once the examination was complete, Dr. Martinez stepped back, a warm smile gracing his lips. "Well, Mrs. Harrington, everything looks perfectly normal," he said, his voice filled with reassurance. "You're in excellent health, and your baby appears to be developing as expected." Arya's face lit up with relief and joy at the doctor's words. She glanced over at Alexander, her eyes shining with happiness and gratitude. "Thank you, Dr. Martinez," she said sincerely. "That's wonderful news." Alexander nodded in agreement, his expression one of pure relief. "Yes, thank you, Luis," he said warmly. "We truly appreciate your expertise and care." The doctor nodded, his smile widening at the couple's palpable joy. "It's my pleasure, Mr. Harrington," he replied warmly. "Congratulations to both of you. I'll schedule your next appointment in a few weeks, but for now, just focus on taking care of yourselves and enjoying this special time." As soon as the doctor and nurse left, Arya's face lit up with excitement as she placed her hand on her abdomen, feeling a surge of love and anticipation for the new life growing inside her. "Did you hear that, Alex?" she exclaimed, her voice filled with joy. "Our baby is healthy." Alexander's smile widened at Arya's enthusiasm as he walked towards her, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude. "Nothing is going to happen to the baby," he reassured her, his voice filled with confidence. "It will always be healthy, I promise." Just then, the television caught their attention as a news report flashed across the screen. The anchor's voice filled the room as they reported on a shocking development: Elena Sterling, found dead in her apartment in New York City. The report indicated that she had taken her own life, leaving behind a note expressing remorse to Alexander Harrington and to the family of the pregnant woman she killed for her actions. Arya's eyes widened in shock as she processed the news, her hand instinctively moving to cover her mouth in disbelief. Beside her, Alexander stood frozen, his expression unreadable as he absorbed the unexpected revelation. Silence enveloped the room, broken only by the somber tone of the news report echoing through the air. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Arya couldn't help but speak up. "Alex, isn't that Elena, your ex?" "Oh my, I can't believe she killed herself," she exclaimed, her voice tinged with shock and disbelief. Alexander's gaze hardened at the mention of Elena's name. "No, that's not possible," he replied firmly, his tone resolute. Confusion clouded Arya's expression as she looked up at him. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice laced with curiosity. "Elena loved her life too much to even consider taking it," Alexander muttered under his breath, his brows furrowing with concern. "That's why she agreed to Julian's terms to avoid facing legal consequences for her actions. There's something off about her death. I'm certain of it." Arya's eyes widened in alarm at Alexander's words. "Are you suggesting that someone might have killed her and the news got it wrong?" she gasped, her voice trembling with fear. Turning to face Arya, Alexander spoke with a reassuring tone. "Babe, I didn't mean to scare you. Let's not dwell on this any further. It's beyond our control," he said, his voice calm yet firm. Despite his attempts to reassure her, Arya's eyes remained wide with apprehension. "But someone is dead, Alex. Someone we knew. We can't just ignore it. she insisted, her voice filled with concern. Alexander's expression softened as he looked at Arya, concern etched in his features. I know, Arya, he replied gently, his voice filled with empathy. But dwelling on it won't change what happened. Right now, our priority is you and our baby. We can't let ourselves get caught up in someone else's tragedy. Arya nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and uncertainty. You're right, Alex, she conceded, her voice tinged with apprehension. But it's just so unsettling to think that someone we knew could meet such a tragic end. Alexander wrapped his arms around Arya, pulling her close as he pressed a tender kiss to her forehead. I understand, Arya, he murmured, his voice filled with reassurance. But we can't let fear consume us. We'll get through this together, just like we always do. With Alexander's comforting embrace, Arya felt a sense of solace wash over her, but deep down she felt a foreboding feeling within that something bad was going to happen, and she was scared. At Harrington's Enterprise. Julian glanced up from his desk, his brow furrowing in annoyance as Ethan burst into his office, his face contorted with anger. The managers in the room stood up, startled by Ethan's sudden outburst, exchanging nervous glances as they waited for the situation to unfold. Both of you get out, Ethan's voice boomed, his tone commanding as he directed his words at the startled managers. Julian's expression remained composed, though a flicker of irritation flashed in his eyes at Ethan's interruption. With a curt nod, he gestured for the managers to leave, signaling for them to continue their discussion later. The managers hastily gathered their things, exchanging concerned glances as they filed out of the office, leaving Ethan and Julian alone. Once they were alone, Julian fixed Ethan with a cold stare, his voice laced with thinly veiled impatience. What's the meaning of this, Ethan? He demanded, his tone sharp. You barge into my office like this, causing a scene in front of everyone. Have you lost your mind? Ethan's rage boiled over as he confronted Julian, his voice trembling with anger. Yes, I've lost my mind. You animal, he growled, his fists clenched in fury. Julian feigned innocence, his expression morphing into a sadistic smile as Ethan's accusation hit its mark. What is all this insult for? He taunted, his tone dripping with malice. Without hesitation, Ethan lashed out, striking Julian across the face with a forceful blow that sent him stumbling backwards, his hand instinctively rising to cradle his stinging cheek. Julian's response was unexpected. A twisted smile spread across his lips as he gazed up at Ethan, a disturbing calmness in his eyes. Confusion mingled with anger in Ethan's voice as he demanded answers. What? Why do you have that look on your face? He snapped, his frustration evident. Julian remained silent, his nonchalant demeanor only serving to stoke Ethan's rage further. I know what you did. I can't believe you dared to kill Elena. You're heartless, Julian, Ethan accused, his voice laced with contempt. Julian's indifference was infuriating. And why do you think I'm the one who caused her death? He countered, taking menacing steps towards Ethan, who instinctively backed away, a flicker of fear crossing his face. Ethan's accusation hung heavy in the air as he confronted Julian. Because you don't want her to reveal who you really are to everyone. Why else would you kill her, huh? He challenged, his voice tinged with desperation. Julian scoffed dismissively, his mocking smile sending a shiver down Ethan's spine. Kill her? Nobody killed her. Didn't you hear the report on the news? Elena Sterling committed suicide, he retorted, his words dripping with disdain. She left a note confessing to killing a pregnant woman in a hit-and-run accident. What does that have to do with me? Ethan's disbelief turned to indignation as he confronted Julian, his words laden with accusation. You're trying to make a fool out of me, but you can't. I know you sent someone to kill her. Why else would a woman who seemed fine just 2 days ago suddenly try to take her own life? You killed her, he declared, lunging forward in a futile attempt to strike Julian once more. But Julian was quicker, effortlessly restraining Ethan and shoving him against the wall with a firm hand. Watch it. Just because I didn't retaliate the first time doesn't mean I won't now. Julian warned, his voice tinged with menace. And as for Elena, he trailed off, a chilling chuckle escaping his lips. Now, you know what I'm capable of when someone stands in the way of my ascent to the top of Harrington Enterprise. Ethan's throat tightened with fear as Julian's words echoed in his mind. There's no way you can inherit the company with this kind of behavior. Grandma must know about this, he protested weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. Julian's smile turned sinister, his grip tightening on Ethan's shoulder. Why don't you shut your mouth, man? You're testing my patience, he snapped, his voice dripping with venom. Don't interfere if you don't want to suffer the same fate as Elena. Ethan recoiled from Julian's words, his mind reeling with horror. I was right. He killed Elena, he realized, a cold chill running down his spine. With a final unsettling pat on Ethan's shoulder, Julian's smirk remained in place as he watched his brother retreat, his mind already plotting his next move in the deadly game of power and manipulation. As Ethan stepped out of Julian's office, his mind swirled with a maelstrom of doubt and dread. Had Julian truly gone to such lengths to silence Elena? The thought sent shivers down his spine, casting a shadow of doubt over everything he thought he knew about his brother. Lost in his thoughts, Ethan wandered aimlessly through the corridors of the office building, each step weighed down by the burden of his newfound knowledge. The revelation of Julian's dark side left him reeling, questioning his own role in the unfolding drama. I can't possibly lose or die at the hands of my own brother, Ethan muttered to himself, his voice barely audible over the din of the bustling workplace. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have shared that evidence with him. With a heavy heart, Ethan continued on his path, his mind consumed by the gravity of the situation. As Arya and Alexander's car pulled up to the grand entrance of the auction venue, the air was abuzz with excitement. Flashbulbs popped as photographers clamored to capture images of the illustrious couple, their presence igniting a frenzy of speculation and admiration. Arya, wrapped in a chic ensemble that discreetly concealed her burgeoning pregnancy, exuded elegance and grace as she stepped out of the car. Alexander, ever the protective partner, placed a reassuring hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the throng of paparazzi with an air of confidence. Behind them, 3 of their formidable bodyguards maintained a vigilant watch, their steely gazes scanning the crowd for any potential threats. With each calculated step, Arya and Alexander made their way towards the entrance, their presence commanding attention and respect. Inside the venue, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation, as the elite gathered to peruse the priceless treasures on display. Arya and Alexander navigated the bustling crowd with ease, their presence a testament to their status and influence in the world of high society. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the auction, Arya couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement. Alex, I'm pressed, Arya said, her voice urgent. Alexander glanced at her with a sigh. Didn't you ease yourself before we left the house? He asked, a hint of exasperation in his tone. Yes, I did, but I'm pressed again. I will go use the restroom, Arya replied, determination in her voice. I will go with you. I don't want. Alexander began, but before he could finish, the host of the auction approached them with a few other people, wearing a polite smile. Mr. Harrington, what a pleasure it is to have you with us tonight, the host said, extending a hand in greeting. Your presence truly elevates our event to new heights. I trust everything is to your liking? Alexander nodded graciously in acknowledgement, returning the handshake with a firm grip. Thank you for the warm welcome, he replied, his tone polite yet reserved. We're delighted to be here. However, my wife needs to use the restroom momentarily. Understanding the urgency of the situation, the host nodded understandingly. Of course, please allow one of my employees to escort Mrs. Harrington to our facilities, he said, gesturing towards the direction of the restrooms. We'll ensure she's attended to promptly. With a grateful smile, Arya accepted the host's offer, excusing herself from Alexander's side. Arya followed one of the female workers from the auction, who had been assigned to escort her to the restroom by the host. Unbeknownst to her, as she and Alexander had arrived, someone had been watching her closely, biding their time, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. A sinister smile crept across the face of this unknown individual as Arya mentioned to Alexander that she needed to use the restroom. She had just flushed the toilet and emerged from the cubicle when she spotted the disheveled woman who had exited Alexander's office the previous day. The woman was standing at the mirror, carefully applying lip gloss, her movements deliberate. Arya's eyes widened in shock as she glanced at the lip gloss in the woman's hand. It was the same shade that had stained Alexander's shirt a few days ago, the one he had claimed was from an accidental encounter at a restaurant. Could it be that all these incidents were connected to this woman? Shaking her head to dispel the unsettling thoughts, Arya chided herself for entertaining such absurd notions. She must be imagining things, letting her mind run wild with unfounded suspicions. As Melissa's eyes met hers in the mirror, she flashed a smile that sent a shiver down Arya's spine. Melissa's smile widened as she caught Arya's gaze in the mirror. "Oh, hello there, darling," she said smoothly, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Arya, ever observant, maintained her composure despite the unsettling encounter. Hi," she replied cautiously, her keen eyes studying Melissa's every move. Melissa chuckled softly as she continued to apply her lip gloss, her eyes never leaving Arya's reflection in the mirror. "I must say, you and Alexander make quite the charming couple," she remarked casually, her tone tinged with a hint of malice. Arya's intuition tingled with suspicion, but she kept her cool. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady despite the subtle unease creeping into her demeanor. Melissa's smirk widened as she turned to face Arya directly, her eyes glittering with mischief. "Oh, nothing, dear, just admiring the view," she replied cryptically. Arya's gaze remained fixed on Melissa as Melissa turned towards her, her brow slightly raised. She then extended the lip gloss towards Arya. "My boyfriend brought this back for me from his trip. Would you like to borrow it for a quick touch-up on your makeup?" Melissa offered graciously. Arya's gaze narrowed as she regarded Melissa, a sense of unease creeping into her mind at the woman's confident demeanor. "Your boyfriend?" she repeated, her voice laced with skepticism. Melissa's lips curled into a sly smile as she held out the lip gloss, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Yes, my boyfriend," she affirmed, her tone dripping with smug satisfaction. Arya's mind raced with questions as she tried to make sense of Melissa's words. Could this woman be referring to Alexander? The mere thought sent a shiver down Arya's spine, her instincts screaming at her to tread carefully in this precarious situation. "Is there something you're trying to insinuate, Melissa?" Arya asked, her voice tinged with caution as she eyed the woman warily. Melissa's smile widened into a knowing grin as she leaned in closer to Arya, her gaze unwavering. "Oh, darling, you have no idea," she replied cryptically, her voice laced with a hint of malice. Arya's eyes flashed with determination as she met Melissa's gaze head-on. "Let me make one thing clear, Melissa," she began, her voice steely with resolve. "Your little games won't work on me. I see right through your facade." Melissa's smile faltered slightly, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features as she realized that Arya wasn't falling for her manipulative tactics. "I know all about your little plan," Arya continued, her tone dripping with contempt. From the lipstick stain on Alexander's shirt to the lip gloss in his pocket. And now this pathetic attempt to insinuate yourself into our lives. Arya's voice rose with each word, her anger simmering just beneath the surface as she confronted Melissa head-on. "You think you can ruin my marriage? Sow doubt in my mind? Well, let me tell you something, Melissa. You don't stand a chance." With a confident stride, Arya closed the distance between them, her eyes blazing with fiery intensity. "Alexander and I trust each other implicitly," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. "We have a bond that can't be broken, a love that's unshakable. You may think you can seduce him, manipulate him, but you're sorely mistaken." Arya's words hung in the air like a challenge, daring Melissa to try her worst. But deep down, Arya knew that Melissa didn't stand a chance against the strength of their love, the depth of their connection. And with that knowledge fueling her resolve, Arya stood tall and unyielding, ready to face whatever obstacles lay ahead. Melissa was shaken and surprised by Arya's response. It seemed like nothing could ruin their marriage. She couldn't understand why Arya didn't react like other women would have upon finding a lipstick stain on their husband's clothes. Most women would keep it to themselves and secretly monitor their husbands, but Arya had been upfront with Alexander, who had told her the truth. Deep down, Melissa couldn't help but admire their love and trust in each other, even though she was disappointed that her plans hadn't worked, and she hadn't been able to help Isabella in any way. Well, it seems you and Alexander have quite a strong bond. I must say, I'm impressed. I apologize if I've caused any misunderstanding. I wish you both nothing but happiness, Melissa said, her voice laced with remorse. She is too quick to apologize, and it only means one thing, Arya thought. Arya's narrowed gaze locked onto Melissa's eyes, her tone firm as she questioned her. You have no interest in Alexander, right? Arya asked, her suspicion evident in her voice. You're just doing this because someone asked you to, she added, her words laced with skepticism. Melissa's smile widened, a hint of amusement flickering in her eyes. I must say, you're quite observant and smart, she replied, her tone cryptic yet acknowledging. Melissa's smile held a hint of contrition as she spoke. I apologize for any harm my actions may have caused and for the thoughts you may have of me right now, she said earnestly. But I assure you, I'm nothing like this. Her tone softened as she explained further. Grace is my aunt, and she asked for my help. I'm sure you'll figure out the rest by yourself. With that, Melissa turned and left, leaving Arya to contemplate her words and the implications they held. Arya took a deep breath, steadying herself as she grappled with the unsettling revelations. The mention of Grace, her stepmother, only fueled her suspicions further. I'm sure this was all Isabella's idea. I can't believe she still hasn't learned her lessons yet. She still wants to ruin me and come in between my marriage with Alexander even while in jail. I shouldn't be calm yet, even if she was still in prison, because the battle was far from over. I can't even imagine what she might have become in prison, Arya muttered to herself, her mind racing with a flurry of thoughts and emotions. Isabella's influence must still be strong even from prison. A wave of dizziness washed over her, causing her to grip onto the sink for support. What am I going to do? What if she gets released from prison? Arya fretted, her mind racing to the news of today about Elena's death in her New York apartment. Panic threatened to consume her as she contemplated the possibility of Isabella's release from prison and the havoc she could wreak on her life. Taking a deep breath, Arya forced herself to straighten up, her hand tenderly caressing her abdomen as she remembered the precious life growing inside her. She couldn't afford to let fear and uncertainty cloud her judgment, especially now that she was responsible for another life. I need to stay strong for our baby, Arya whispered to herself, determination flickering in her eyes. I won't let anyone harm us, no matter what. With renewed resolve, she composed herself and left the restroom. After ending the call, Alexander's expression darkened, prompting Arya to notice the change in his demeanor. Alexander, what's wrong? She asked, concern etched in her voice. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's my father. He called to apologize for everything and then mentioned that my grandmother wants me at a meeting tomorrow, he explained, his tone troubled. A meeting? About what? Arya inquired, furrowing her brow. I don't know, Alexander replied with a shake of his head. But it doesn't feel right. I can't shake off this uneasy feeling, he admitted, his worry evident. Why do you feel uneasy? Arya asked, her concern deepening. My grandmother has never invited me to a meeting related to the company before. That's why I'm feeling this way, Alexander replied, his tone tinged with unease. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Your grandmother must have her reasons, and we'll deal with whatever comes our way, just like we always do. Arya replied with reassurance. Alexander smiled, recalling their previous conversation before his father's call interrupted them. You were saying something about who was trying to ruin our marriage? I'm curious. Who was it? He asked. Melissa told me it was Grace. It seems Isabella is still trying to harm me while in prison. To her, there must be a way of getting back at me for what I did to her, but she deserves everything that's happening to her right now, Arya replied. Alexander nodded thoughtfully. So the lipstick stain and the lip gloss were all done on purpose? I should have taken this issue more seriously. It all makes sense now. How Melissa suddenly came to my company to become the model for ecstasy? Her plan was to seduce me? He scoffed. Seduce you, maybe. But she really didn't have any interest in you like she had told me. Her main goal was to create doubts in our marriage, to make me think you were cheating on me. It seems Isabella is looking for a way to separate us. What I don't get is what she will benefit from all of this. Arya sighed. Melissa told me to figure it out all by myself, she added. Alexander frowned. Let me take care of this. We know the truth now, and nothing can come between us. Don't dwell too much on what's happening. I don't want you hurting yourself by overthinking, he reassured her. Upon returning home from the auction, Arya and Alexander settled into the comfort of their home. Arya suggested, Let's unwind a bit, shall we? It's been quite an eventful afternoon. Alexander nodded in agreement, a small smile gracing his lips. I couldn't agree more. How about a relaxing evening by the fireplace? We can enjoy a glass of wine and just unwind, he suggested, his voice laced with warmth. Arya's eyes lit up at the idea, the thought of a cozy evening by the fire sounding incredibly inviting. That sounds perfect, she replied with a smile, but suddenly pouted. I'd love to, but you know I can't, she replied, gently reminding him of her pregnancy. Alexander's expression softened as he remembered. Of course, I'm sorry. I completely forgot, he apologized, his hand brushing against hers in reassurance. Let me make you something else instead. With a nod of agreement, Arya settled back into the comfort of the couch, her eyes fixed on the flickering flames of the fire. It's all right, love. I'll just have some sparkling water, she said, her voice filled with warmth. As Alexander returned with a glass of sparkling water for Arya and a glass of wine for himself, they clinked their glasses together in a silent toast before taking a sip. Soon we'll have a little one joining us, Alexander remarked, his eyes softening as he looked at Arya. Do you think we'll be good parents? Arya reached for Alexander's hand, intertwining their fingers together. I have no doubt about that, she replied, her voice filled with confidence. We'll learn and grow together just like we always do. And with you by my side, I know we can handle anything that comes our way. Alexander smiled, a sense of warmth and contentment washing over him. I can't wait to meet our little one, he said, his gaze lingering on Arya with adoration. A few moments later, as they sat by the flickering flames, surrounded by the warmth of their home, Alexander's gaze drifted towards Arya, a soft smile playing on his lips. Do you think our baby will be a girl or a boy? He mused, his eyes filled with curiosity and excitement. Arya's own eyes sparkled with anticipation as she considered the question. I'm not sure, she admitted, a hint of wonder in her voice. But I can't wait to find out. I imagine our little one will be as beautiful and spirited as their parents. Alexander chuckled softly, his heart swelling with affection. I have no doubt about that, he agreed, his fingers gently tracing patterns on Arya's hand. And when we move into the mansion, we'll have plenty of space to create a nursery fit for a prince or princess. Arya's smile widened at the thought, her mind already filled with visions of a cozy nursery adorned with soft colors and whimsical decorations. That sounds perfect, she replied, her voice filled with excitement. As the fire crackled softly, casting a warm glow across the room, Alexander reached out to gently brush a stray lock of hair from Arya's face, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. Their eyes met, a silent exchange of love and affection passing between them. At that moment, surrounded by the soft flicker of candlelight and the gentle crackle of the fire, they felt the weight of the world melt away, leaving only the two of them in their own little oasis of love. Without a word, Alexander leaned in, his lips meeting Arya's in a tender kiss that spoke volumes of their deep connection. It was a kiss filled with promise, with hope, and with the overwhelming sense of joy that came from knowing they were about to embark on the greatest adventure of their lives together. As they pulled away, their breath mingling in the air, Arya couldn't help but smile, her heart overflowing with love for the man beside her. Arya flushed with a contented smile. She leaned back against the plush cushions, feeling utterly at peace in Alexander's embrace. "You know what sounds amazing right now?" she murmured, her voice soft and dreamy. Alexander's gaze softened as he looked at her, his heart swelling with love for this incredible woman by his side. "What's that, my love?" he asked, his voice filled with warmth. Arya's eyes sparkled with excitement as she spoke. "Ramen," she declared with a grin. "I'm craving a big bowl of steaming hot ramen with all the fixings. Do you think we could find a place that's still open?" Alexander chuckled, his heart lighter than it had been in ages. "Of course, anything for you, my dear," he replied, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Let's go on a late-night ramen adventure together." As Alexander gazed at Arya, a soft smile tugged at the corners of his lips. What had he done to deserve such an extraordinary woman like her? It was a question that often crossed his mind, leaving him in awe of the love and happiness she brought into his life. At that moment, he felt a surge of gratitude wash over him, grateful for the serendipitous turn of events that had led him to her. He couldn't help but marvel at the twist of fate that had brought them together, a twist he had once resisted, but now embraced with open arms. He was glad he hadn't ignored the summons to his own wedding, as he once might have done in rebellion against his father's wishes. Instead, he had followed his heart, and it had led him straight to Arya, the love of his life. With a tender glance at his beloved, Alexander silently vowed to cherish every moment they shared together, knowing deep in his heart that he was the luckiest man in the world to have her by his side. The following day, morning, the sleek black Porsche rolled into the expansive grounds of the Harrington Castle, its engine purring softly as it came to a stop near the grand entrance. As the car doors opened, Alexander emerged, his posture confident and determined. As Alexander stepped out of the car, the butler and a few maids approached him with polite greetings, their demeanor respectful as they welcomed him back to Harrington Castle. "Welcome back, Master Alexander," the butler greeted him with a nod. "Good to see you, sir," one of the maids added, her voice soft. Returning their greetings with a warm smile, Alexander nodded in acknowledgement before making his way into the building, his curiosity piqued by the summons from his grandmother. Entering the courtyard, he was met by his father, Gabriel, who wore a genuine smile, the kind Alexander hadn't seen from him before. "Alexander, it's good to have you home," Gabriel said, approaching with open arms for a hug. Surprised by the gesture, Alexander hesitated for a moment before returning the embrace. "Thanks, Dad," he replied, the stiffness in his posture betraying the tension that still lingered between them. Despite the strained relationship, Gabriel seemed hopeful, eager to bridge the gap that had formed between them over the years. "It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk," Gabriel remarked, his tone filled with sincerity. "Yeah, it has," Alexander agreed, a hint of awkwardness in his voice. As they exchanged pleasantries, Alexander couldn't help but wonder what his father had in store for him during this meeting. "Your brothers and your grandmother are waiting for you in your grandmother's office," Gabriel informed Alexander. Alexander nodded, acknowledging his father's words, and proceeded to the office with Gabriel following closely behind. As they walked, Gabriel observed his son with a sense of pride. "I have a feeling Mother is going to make him the successor of Harrington Enterprise," he thought to himself. Upon entering Grandma Yolanda's office, Julian's gaze met Alexander's with evident contempt. He hadn't anticipated Alexander's presence at the meeting, and his silent, seething anger was palpable. Meanwhile, Ethan cast a glance at Alexander with a twinge of jealousy. He couldn't fathom how his younger brother, Alexander, had achieved so much more than him. Alexander's true identity still left him feeling bewildered, angry, and impressed. Ethan grappled with conflicting emotions, unsure whether to harbor resentment towards his younger brother or simply admire his accomplishments. The possibility that Alexander might attain the one thing Ethan truly desired, Harrington Enterprise, only added to his internal turmoil. Grandma Yolanda, however, welcomed Alexander with open arms and a warm smile, her eyes sparkling with pride. "That's my boy. I knew you would never reject my request." "You always come through," she chuckled warmly. Returning her smile, Alexander greeted his grandmother with affection. "Good morning, Grandma. How have you been?" he inquired politely. "I've been well, dear, and even better now that I see you," Grandma Yolanda replied with a twinkle in her eye. Alexander's smile widened at her response. "I'm glad to hear that. And yes, I've been taking my pills, just as you instructed," he reassured her. Chuckling softly, Grandma Yolanda turned her attention to the topic of Arya and their future family. "And how is Arya? When can I expect to hear the cry of a baby again?" she teased playfully. Alexander smirked, knowing the news would surely bring joy to his grandmother's heart. "Arya is doing well, Grandma. As for the cries of a baby, well, let's just say you won't have to wait too long," he replied cryptically, deciding to keep the news of Arya's pregnancy a surprise for now. Grandma Yolanda chuckled at his response, her eyes twinkling with anticipation. "I can't wait to meet my newest great-grandchild," she exclaimed, her excitement palpable. Julian's insincerity was evident in his tight greeting, his jealousy and anger simmering just beneath the surface. "It's good to see you, brother," he uttered, the words dripping with bitterness. "Shall we proceed with the meeting, Grandma?" he added, eager to steer the conversation away from Alexander. Grandma Yolanda regarded Julian with a discerning frown before addressing the gathered family members. "Good morning, everyone. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the succession plan for Harrington Enterprise," she began, her tone serious. Upon hearing this revelation, Alexander's brow furrowed in confusion and frustration. So, this was the purpose behind the meeting. It revolved around the decision of who would become the successor of Harrington Enterprise. Why hadn't anyone informed him about this beforehand? If they had, he wouldn't have bothered to attend. Alexander had no desire to work for Harrington Enterprise and had no interest in engaging in a power struggle with his brothers over a company when he already had his own ventures to focus on.